Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
There is a request for Surah Al-Fatiha for Sayyid Jawhar Hussain ibn Sayyid Muhammad Raza, Jasima Khatun bint Sayyid Anwar Hussain, Sayyid Muhammad Imam ibn Sayyid Akbar Hussain, and Majida Khatun bint Sayyid Sakhawat Hussain, and the Arwah al-Mu'mineen wal-Mu'minat. Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام على آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المظلومين واللعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم عداوتهم إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال فبما أغويتني لأقعدن لهم صراطك المستقيم ثم لآتينهم من بين أيديهم ومن خلفهم وعن أيمانهم وعن شمائلهم ولا تجد أكثرهم شاكرين. صلوات الله. In these days and nights of Azah, in the last couple of weeks, when I've had the honor of reciting the Majlis of Aba Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam, I have spoken on various issues related to the need to reform ourselves spiritually. And a common question that has come time and again is that how do we maintain a state of spiritual wakefulness? And we sometimes feel this sense of higher spirituality within ourselves, but then it quickly fades away. And that if we seek these higher levels of understanding and spirituality, and this not just a mental understanding of what it means to be pious, but to experience it on a daily basis, are there any steps that we can implement? Are there any things we can do in our lives that would allow us to feel and experience in some ways what the Shias of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad alayhi salam should experience? And what I wish to do this afternoon, inshallah, with the barakat of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, is talk about just one aspect that we can try and implement that inshallah would allow us to experience this more frequently. Last year, when I had the honor of reciting the majlis here at Brother Muattar's residence, those of you who were present may remember I spoke about Rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this year I want to stress the importance of expressing gratitude or shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, I do not wish to speak specifically on shukr. What I wish to do is explain some matters that work within the human mind and heart that will lead us to conclude that salvation lies in adopting this attitude of shukr. And so the conclusion that I will draw at the end is that in order for us to attain higher levels of spirituality, the one ingredient that we miss very often is having that sense of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that constant thought of what His blessings are on us and how to express that gratitude to Him. We are grateful to Him, we do acknowledge Him as our benefactor, as our Lord, as our Creator, but we also take this for granted. So on a day-by-day basis, when we eat food, when we experience good health, when we have safety, when we have our jobs, when we have our families, when we have people to love and people who love us, when we have the pleasure of experiencing Iman and the love of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, we assume these to be a right, that others have it and so do we. And it is only when we lose this that we realize their value. But the point I wish to argue is not so much appreciating their value until we lose them, but rather appreciating who is the one giving us those blessings. And if we can adopt this attitude in life where we don't expect anything as our right, but go through life with a deep sense of gratitude that everything we have and we get and we experience, every moment of our life is a gift, and that we are grateful for it, then that sense of gratitude is sufficient to keep us spiritually awake and bring us to higher levels of understanding. So I will draw this as a conclusion, but I will start with something else that will bring us to this logical conclusion. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad. The verse of Quran that I begin with is from Surah Al-A'raf, chapter 7, verses 16 and 17. And I've spoken on this subject before, but in much more detail as separate parts. And so in a sense I am summarizing it here to bring that conclusion that I spoke about earlier. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these verses records the conversation he has with Iblis, with Shaitaan, at the time that he refuses to prostrate to Adam. And when Allah expels him from his kingdom and now eternally marks him as one who is wretched and one who is destined for hell, Shaitaan, now in rebellion, speaks to Allah in these verses. قَالَ فَبِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. Now, his main anger and hatred was for Adam, because he saw Adam as the cause of his downfall. He had a very high rank and a very high status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But because of his deep-set jealousy towards Adam, and therefore the progeny of Adam, he blamed Adam in a sense that because of this new creation who was given this position and maqam of being the Khalifa of Allah when it should have been mine, when I am better than him, therefore his hatred was now for Adam and his children of Adam. So he says to Allah, because you have made me wretched, I will now sit waiting for them on your right path. And I will come to them from in front of them and from behind them. And I will come to them from the right side and from the left side. وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. And you will see, O Allah, that you will find very few from the progeny of Adam who will be grateful to you. There will be very few who will do shukr to you. Most of them you will find them ungrateful. Now, when we look at this ayah and we start breaking it down from a tafsir perspective, a lot of different points begin to reveal themselves. The first thing that becomes apparent is that Shaitaan is blaming Allah and Adam for his downfall rather than taking responsibility for his own jealousy and his refusal and arrogance to prostrate before Adam. Why? Because he says, قَالَ فَبِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي, because you have made me wretched. So it is you who have caused this to me. The second thing he clarifies for us is that Allah has only one straight path, Sirat al-Mustaqim, and that humans by nature, their fitrah is to be on the right path, which is why we have this famous hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى فِطْرَةِ الْإِسْلَامِ. Every human child who is born on the divine instinct of following Islam, of believing in one God. ثُمَّ أَبَوَيْهِ يُنَصِّرَانَهُ or يُوَحِّدَانَهُ and so on. It is his parents then who make him a Christian or a Hindu or a Jew or any other faith that deviates from that. And that is why Islam presents itself as a deen of natural divine instinct, of fitrah. So Shaitaan acknowledges it in this verse, because he says to Allah, he doesn't say that some of them will already be misguided and those who are guided I will misguide them. He says, no, I will sit waiting for them on the right path. لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. I will sit waiting for them on your right path. Why sit waiting for them? Because that is where I will find them. Because the natural instinct is to follow Sirat al-Mustaqim. And then he now declares his strategy. ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ. I will attack them from the front. وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ. And from behind. وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ. And some of them I will attack from the right side and some from the left side. وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. Now, why is he revealing his tactic? Is he not afraid that Allah will block those avenues and stop him from being able to come to the children of Adam from those avenues? No, he is revealing it because he is in a sense asking permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is making sure that Allah is not going to block those avenues. He is trying to gauge and assess that are these roads and avenues open for me. And indeed Allah tells him that you do what you want. Now then he comes and says, وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. And you will find most of them ungrateful. This is very, very important because it tells us what his end goal is. That the ultimate goal of Shaitaan is not that you commit a sin. Because he knows when you sin, you can always do istighfar and you can undo that. What he really wants is for you to forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wants you to sin so much that you get to a point where you feel that now there is no point in doing istighfar and tawbah, because I have gone so far out that even Allah will not forgive me now. Wal-iyadhu billah. To lose hope, to become so skeptical that you no longer think of Allah or thank Him. That is the point he wants to get to. And that is why he says, I will do all these and you will find most of them ungrateful. And therefore being grateful versus being ungrateful becomes the measure and the yardstick by which you determine whether Shaitaan has taken grasp of our souls or not. The more we are able to express this shukr to Allah and remain aware that He is our benefactor, that itself is evidence that Shaitaan has not yet taken a grasp or a hold on us in this. Now, there is a very nice and beautiful hadith, and all the ahadith are beautiful, but this is very much related to this verse, as a tafsir of this verse from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Yeah, if you can please move forward wherever you have some room, so there's room at the back for others who come. Salawat ala Salawat ala
Para tiga voluntar salawat.
And this is given in the Tafsir Majma'ul Bayan. It is an highly regarded Shia tafsir. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam explains this ayah of Quran. What did Shaitaan mean when he said, I will attack from the front and the back and the right and the left? He says, when he said, I will attack them from the front, لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ, what he meant was, أُهَوِّنُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْآخِرَةِ, I will make the hereafter to seem trivial to them. They will claim there is a day of judgment, but it won't be in front of them in their day-to-day activities. They will forget about it. I will make it insignificant to them, the hereafter. The world will be significant, the hereafter will be insignificant. And I will attack them from behind. He said what that means is, أُفْسِدُ عَلَيْهِمْ أَمْرَ الدُّنْيَا دِينَهُمْ بِتَزْيِينِ الضَّلَالَ وَتَحْسِينِ الشُّبْهَةِ. I will, that is the from the right side. From behind, he says, أَمُرُهُمْ بِجَمْعِ الْأَمْوَالِ وَمَنْعِهَا عَنِ الْحُقُوقِ لِتَبْقَى لِوَرَثَتِهِمْ. Attack them from behind. Attack them from the front is I will trivialize and make the hereafter insignificant. Attack them from behind is I will command them to accumulate wealth. And I will strike in them the fear of poverty so that they will be concerned about saving it for their children and their posterity. Now this is a very delicate subject obviously, because Islam does tell us to save some for a rainy day, and so that when we pass away our spouse and our children are not homeless and are not without wealth. But he is talking here about amassing wealth to an unreasonable degree, where there is no limit, where someone has accumulated $1 million, he wants 2, he has 10 million, he wants 20, and the constant argument is I need to save this for my children so that my children will not have to work. Even though we in our own lives know that if we didn't have any work to do, we wouldn't be very productive in life. And we would actually not have a very nice life if we were just sitting at home doing nothing with millions of dollars in the bank. That thing that we complain about, getting up in the morning and having going to work, is actually what gives us a purpose and gives us some meaning to our lives and gives us some sense of a schedule and some meaning to what we do on a day-to-day basis. So he says, I will command them that whatever huquq you have to give in your religion, zakat, khums, whatever it is, don't give it. Save it for your children for the future, because that is where they will need it. And I will attack them from the right side. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam says, that is أُفْسِدُ عَلَيْهِمْ أَمْرَ دِنْيَاهُمْ. I will corrupt their understanding of religion, and I will make misguidance to appear beautiful and appealing to them, and I will also make doubts to appear nice to them. وَتَحْسِينُ الشُّبْهَةِ. And this is very, very important, because, and I will come back to this, but then he says, and attack them from the left is, I will make their lusts and their desires to seem beautiful to them, and it will overwhelm and overcome their judgment and mindset, so that even though with their minds they will know this is wrong, but with their emotions and their hearts it will overwhelm them. They will not be able to control their desires in committing sins. Now, we know from general understanding of Islam that the right is associated with goodness. The Quran speaks of Ashabul Yameen as people of paradise, and Ashabul Shimal as people of hellfire, people of the left side. Or the Quran speaks, for example, of how the righteous will be given their books of deeds, their a'mal, in their right hands. The wretched and those destined for hell will be given their books in their left hand, or from behind, min wara'i dhuhurihim, from behind their backs. So wherever the Quran or Hadith uses right and left, it uses it a lot of time with the idea of good versus evil. So here what the Imam is explaining is that there are two kinds of Muslims. There are those who are religious and those who are irreligious. The reason why he attacks from the right side by corrupting religion is because that is the side from which he attacks the religious. And the reason why he attacks from the left side with enamoring and decorating desires and sin is because that is the side from which he attacks the sinful and the irreligious. And the point of all this is that he does not leave anyone. Shaitaan's strategy and his progeny, he has his vast progeny as well, just as Adam alayhi salam has, and just as the angels are a vast progeny, is that he will spare no one, but he will use whatever means is best to attack someone based on his makeup and his setup. He knows, for example, that someone who is religious will not easily be convinced to go and consume alcohol, for example, wal-iyadhu billah, or eat pork, for example, or commit zina, wal-iyadhu billah, or something like, sinful like that. He knows that. So he's not even going to try that, because he knows this person has faith as a barrier that will protect him from that. What he does with him is he uses religion. He uses doubts. He creates different sects and different groups and different ideas and different ideologies, so that the religious get confused. And deep down there is a spiritual disease. That disease is perhaps a desire for fame, or a desire for authority, or a desire for prestigious, or a desire for people to say this person has a lot of religious knowledge. So there is another underlying reason that that individual is not even aware of. But he will use religion to create confusion and doubt. Which is why you will see that in any society you live in, where there is a large number of mu'mineen, you will find there is a lot of groups and divisions, a lot of masajid and centers that are not only divided on the basis of geographical location or convenience, but sometimes divided because of a difference of opinion in ideology and understanding. There are some, for example, who in the name of the Ahlul Bayt and showing their love have extreme ideas of ghulu. There are some, for example, who are very liberal and pluralistic in their mindset, and in the name of being intellectual have a very different understanding of religion. There are some who see themselves as being very moderate, but they, for example, lack the courage to speak up the truth when they need to. There are some who see themselves as being very scientific, so they're skeptical and doubtful about everything, and they downplay the importance of Sharia and only talk about philosophy and spirituality and the need to focus on the meaning behind the law, but not the law itself. So you find all these ideas appealing to people's minds. Some of these are a natural result of ignorance. Some of it are the result of a process of attaining maturity, but some of these are from Shaitaan when he attacks from the right side. And as I explain how he attacks, it will become more clear. But the Quran has a history of communities where Shaitaan misguides people, and the people who commit the greatest sin and kill even the prophets of Allah were those who were religious in their own false religions, such as the idol worshippers. So for example, in Surah Al-Anbiya, which is chapter 21 verse 68, we are told that when the idol worshippers wanted to burn Ibrahim alayhi salam and throw him in the fire, and they wanted to get people to burn him, they didn't get the irreligious, they got the religious people, the ones who were very religious in idol worship. And they used a certain idea to convince them why we should burn Ibrahim. قَالُوا حَرِّقُوهُ, they said, burn him to death, وَانْصُرُوا آلِهَتَكُمْ, and thereby rescue your gods. إِن كُنْتُمْ فَاعِلِينَ, because if you don't do it, then who will rescue your gods? You see, it didn't occur to them that how is he my God if I have to rescue him? But the mindset was a religious one. And when you see the people who opposed Nuh alayhi salam as well, they said to each other, قَالُوا لَا تَذَرُنَّ آلِهَتَكُمْ, don't listen to Nuh, don't forsake your gods. وَلَا تَذَرُوا وَلَا تَذَرُنَّ وَدًّا وَلَا سُوَاعًا وَلَا يَغُوثَ وَيَعُوقَ وَنَصْرًا. These were the famous idols that they had. They had Wud, and they had Suwa, and they had Yaghuth, and they had Ya'uq, and they had Nasr. And there's a very interesting history behind these. That there were 5 individuals in those community that were very pious and very religious. And when they died, how Shaitaan came to them and convinced them to build idols of them. And generation after generation, how he made them into gods. And now they argue against Nuh to say, don't listen to Nuh, because he will take you away from your gods. And from these 5 great gods, do not forsake your religion, the religion of your forefathers. So we begin to see that Shaitaan has a strategy for everyone. It's not just Shaitaan is only after those who are irreligious. This is a common misconception we have a lot of times, that when Shaitaan wants to misguide, he looks for people who are not religious, and then he goes after them with the weapons of sin. No, he goes after the pious as well. He goes after the religious as well. In fact, we have a hadith that says there are more shayateen on a mu'min, not a fasiq, not a munafiq, not an ordinary Muslim, a mu'min. There are more shayateen on a mu'min than there are on a piece of meat that is left out under the hot sun on a hot summer day. And many of you are immigrants here, so when I talk of hot summer day and a piece of meat covered with flies, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Right? You have seen this in Iraq, you have seen this in India, Pakistan, you have seen this in Africa, where flies will just cover any piece of food that is out in the hot sun. الشياطين على المؤمن أكثر من الزنابير على اللحم. There are more devils sitting on a mu'min than there are flies on a piece of meat. And they are constantly doing tawaf of the heart of a mu'min, looking for a way to get in. Now we shall come to that very quickly. I don't want to make this a very lengthy majlis, but let us reflect for a moment here that how did Shaitaan mislead Adam when Adam was not yet a prophet, when he was in Jannah, and Shaitaan convinced him to eat from the tree. And Allah had already told Adam, do not eat, that enjoy everything you want in this garden, you and your wife Hawa alayhi salam. وَلَا تَقْرَبَ هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ. Just don't come close to this tree. Don't even go near this tree. Now, if you think about it, Shaitaan was doing tawaf of Adam, looking for a way to get to him, thinking, how do I get into Adam so that he for a moment stops thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that his attention, his single-minded devotion to Allah, his dhikr of Allah, his shukr to Allah is distracted for a moment, so that I can get his ears and he can listen to me. The way he does it is he looks at the heart of Adam to see, is there something that Adam wants other than Allah? Anything that I can use as my advantage. When he looked at it carefully, he saw that Adam was happy with everything in Jannah. There was only one thing that Adam was not happy about. And that was that Adam knew he was going to die. And he wanted immortality. You see, Adam already knew that he was superior to the angels because the angels had bowed and prostrated to him. Secondly, Allah had tested Adam and the angels when He taught him the names. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. And then He said to the angels, أَنْبِئُونِي بِهَذِهِ الْأَسْمَاءِ. Tell me the names of these if you know. And Adam revealed the names that Allah taught him. And Allah said to the angels, did I not tell you, إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, I know what you don't know? And they acknowledged it and said, سُبْحَانَكَ لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا إِلَّا مَا عَلَّمْتَنَا. Indeed, glorified be you. This is a wonderful creation. So Adam knew that he was created as a Khalifa of Allah, he was superior. But there was one thing the angels had that Adam did not have. And that was that the angels are not going to die until the Day of Judgment. And he didn't have that. And after he saw Jannat and how beautiful it was, and the blessings of Allah, and that feeling of, being close to Allah, it was so beautiful to him. It grieved him that I shall one day have to die. Which is natural to all humans, because the human being is created to live forever. إِنَّمَا خُلِقْتُمْ لِلْبَقَاءِ مَا خُلِقْتُمْ لِلْفَنَاءِ. Allah did not create you to perish. Allah created you for all eternity. But He created your soul for all eternity. And He will plant it in a different body on the Day of Judgment when He resurrects you. But humans, when they are rooted from a physical perspective, they worry about death. They worry about this black hole when the lights turn off and I suddenly disappear out of existence. What awaits me after that? Now, how do we know that Adam was worried about immortality? We know this because when we now see the conversation between Shaitaan and Adam, we see that this is what Shaitaan uses to lure Adam. In Surah Al-A'raf, the same surah that we began with, verse 20, فَوَسْوَسَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانِ. So Shaitan created a doubt for Adam and Hawa. لِيُبْدِيَ لَهُمَا مَا وُرِيَ عَنْهُمَا مِنْ سَوْآتِهِمَا. And through this process of doubt, He made them aware and conscious of their own nakedness, so that they now acquired that consciousness. وَقَالَ مَا نَهَاكُمَا رَبُّكُمَا عَنْ هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ. And He said to Adam and Hawa, your Lord, if you believe me, I will tell you, your Lord has not forbidden you from this tree except for one reason. إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَ مَلَكَيْنِ أَوْ تَكُونَ مِنَ الْخَالِدِينَ. The only reason He forbade you is because He does not want you to become like the angels, and He does not want you to live forever. And then in chapter 20, verse 120, we see the same thing. فَوَسْوَسَ إِلَيْهِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Now only Adam is mentioned. So Shaitan created a waswasa, a doubt in the heart of Adam. قَالَ يَا Adam. He said, O Adam, هَلْ أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى شَجَرَةِ الْخُلْدِ وَمُلْكٍ لَا تَبْلَى. shall I show you a tree of immortality and a kingdom that will never perish? You see, all these arguments he is using is telling us what he found as something that Adam wanted besides Allah, and he was going to use it. And it wasn't an one-time process, it was a gradual process, because Allah also says in the Quran that he showed Shaitaan to Adam and Hawa and said, he is aduwwun lakum, he is an enemy to you and your progeny, beware of him. So what happened was, he first began talking to them. They said, no, we're not listening to you, you are an enemy. Then he said, okay, don't listen to me, but I'm going to talk anyway. So he started having conversations, and they wouldn't listen to him and wouldn't listen to him. And then he appealed to their mind and said, look, I just want to tell you something. You don't have to believe in me. It's up to you. Shall I show you a tree of immortality? Because I have lived for a lot longer than you have, and a kingdom that never perishes. They said, oh, there's no such thing. He said, well, there is. I'll show you. He said, okay, show us. So he took them to a tree. When they saw the tree, they said, astaghfirullah, this is the same tree that Allah said not to go to, and you're telling us this is the tree? Get out of here. So he left. But now he has planted a seed in the mind of insan. So now it stays there. And then once an idea is in the mind, it grows, it germinates, it flowers. And they began thinking, could this be the reason why Allah told us not to eat? Why not eat from this tree and eat from everywhere? Is it because Allah has assigned death for us and this will give us immortality? You see? So you begin to see that the process that Shaitaan uses is he looks for something in your heart that you want besides Allah, and then he uses it to his advantage. Now, Shaitaan is very weak, but he's also very dangerous. He's very weak because Allah has not given him the ability to force any human being to commit a sin. And on the day of judgment, when humans will tell Shaitaan that it was you who led us to the fire of hell, he will say to them, I only suggested ideas to you and you listened to me. إِنَّمَا دَعَوْتُكُمْ فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي. I just called you and you came running to me. I didn't force you. فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. So don't blame me now, blame your own selves. Shaitaan is a salesman. Shaitaan is a broker. What he does is he looks at what you desire and then he packages it. He boxes it with a nice wrapper, he puts a nice ribbon on it, and then he presents it to you. But he is very weak, he cannot force you. What makes him dangerous is that we are told in hadith that he flows in the children of Adam, يَجْرِي فِي ابْنِ آدَمْ كَمَجْرِيَ الدَّمْ. He flows in us like blood flows. What does that mean? That means, first of all, he can see us, but we can't see him. And the Quran testifies to this. هُوَ وَقَبِيلَهُ يَرَاكُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُ. He and his progeny, they see you from a place where you cannot see them, because they are subtle beings. So he can see you, you can't see him. Secondly, because he can read your thoughts and your minds, he can plant a thought and a mind and an idea when you're not in a state of taqwa, when you're not God conscious for a moment and you slip. He can plant an idea into your heart and your mind, and you will not be able to tell it apart from your own thought and your own idea. So it becomes your own thought and your own idea, but what you don't realize is that it's not from you. And that is where he becomes dangerous. And the example I give is, imagine you are in a home that is pitch dark, there's no lights on, and there is an enemy with you in the house who is trying to kill you. And he can see you, but you can't see him. And he can convince you to do anything, and you will believe it is your own idea. How dangerous is that as an enemy? And therefore it becomes important to find a means of relief and rescue to escape this enemy who is able to plant waswasa and thoughts in the hearts of the children of Adam. And that means of rescue is that constant consciousness and awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the reason Allah tells you to submit to Him is not because He wants your prayers and your fasting. It's not because unless you do things for Him then He can give you Jannat. It's not because He gets something or He becomes greater if you glorify Him. No, it is because that is the only way to save yourselves from the attack of Shaitaan. It is that consciousness that will keep Shaitaan doing tawaf of your heart, but he will not find a means to penetrate and come into our minds. And that is why you see that when Shaitaan cannot come directly to you, then he will use those who are near you to come to you. So for example, in chapter 64 verse 14, he says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, inna min azwajikum wa awladikum aduwwun lakum fahdharhum. O you who have faith, from your spouses and your children there are enemies of you, so beware of them, for some of you. Here it doesn't mean enemy as in enemy like the wife of Lut and the wife of Nuh and spouses and children who are sinful and against religion. No. It means that sometimes you might have a higher level of faith and understanding, but your children or spouse don't have that. They might come and appeal to you and beg to you to do something haram, to earn a livelihood that is not lawful, because they are hungry or because they really want this thing that they cannot afford. And you, out of your kindness and your love for your children, will fall for it. So what happens here now is that Shaitaan does not come to you directly. He comes through an ambassador, he comes through an agent, he uses a wasila, he uses a means to appeal to you. And that is why you will see that human beings have different makeups, but in the name of religion they do wrong in different ways. So for example, if he sees that you are a person who is very gentle and very kind-hearted, then he will use your family members to appeal to you to do something wrong, because that is, he cannot get to you directly. If he sees you are someone who is very compassionate about all humanity and you want to save all humanity, he will bring ideas of, let's say, liberalism and pluralistic ideas into your mind, so that your nature will agree with it and you will believe those ideas are your own. If you're a person who is very narrow-minded, very firm, very strict, very stubborn, very arrogant, doesn't change, he brings religious bigotry into you. You become like ISIS and Taliban, and he brings this idea of, in the name of Allah you have to purify the earth and kill everyone who disagrees with you, and you think you're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Shaitaan is using your nature of being that stern, angry, non-compromising in the name of religion. If you are the intellectual kind, he will use your predisposition to being doubtful and skeptics about everything, to say, well, this mu'jiza can't be true, that mu'jiza can't be true, the Ahlul Bayt could not be like this. He uses our nature and our mindset and our upbringing and our genetics and how we are predisposed in our nature. If we are the emotional kind, what we call jazbati, where we get emotional about everything, then he will use that love of Ahlul Bayt to create ideas of ghulu, of Amir al-Mu'mineen created the world and he did this and he did that and he is the Razik and he is the Khaliq, and you begin to follow the same path that the Christians followed with Jesus. The person who first came up with the idea that Jesus is the Son of God and Jesus is God also did it from a religious perspective. So Shaitaan will use any part of our nature. Are we emotional? Are we intellectual? Are we stern? Are we liberal? And whatever we do, he will use that. The only people he cannot get to are the mukhlasin, those who are absolutely, sincerely, single-minded, devoted to Allah. Which is why in another place in the Quran he says to Allah, لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ لَأُغْوِيَنَّ عِبَادَكَ مِنْ أَجْمَعِينَ إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. I will misguide every single one of the children of Adam except those who are absolutely sincere and mukhlasin to you. And we have in tafsir that these mukhlasin who are absolutely pure from any attack from shaitan and sin are none other than Muhammad and Ali Muhammad alayhimus salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala So here when Shaitan is saying, I will misguide all of them, illa ibadaka minhumul mukhlasin, he is not saying that I'm going to be nice and I'm going to leave those who are sincere. He is an open enemy. What he is saying is, he is admitting defeat. He is saying to Allah, these I accept, I will not be able to get to. Why? Because they are so single-mindedly devoted to you no matter how hard I try to plant ideas, I will not be able to get to them, because their taslim and ikhlas is at such a level that anything I plant does not germinate, because they don't have any will of their own, they don't have any desires of their own, they don't have any wants of their own that opposes yours. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. You do not want anything, O Muhammad, except what Allah wants. مَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. He does not speak out of his own desire. So those who I will not be able to reach are those who are absolutely sincere. So now we want to draw to a conclusion and say that if we understand now the strategy of Iblis, that what he wants from us is something that we desire other than Allah. Now, the fact of the matter is, because we are not infallible, and because we don't see Shaitaan, and because we also have a physical dimension that strives for survival in this world, we will always have desires that are not only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That level of irfan and taslim and ikhlas, very few can get. We all have needs. We all have a desire for a spouse and intimacy. We all are hungry. We desire food. Sometimes we desire good food. And these are all halal, right? Some desire a coffee, some desire a cigarette, some desire this, some desire a vacation. There are so many things we desire that are halal. But what we need to be aware and conscious of is that when you desire anything other than Allah, it is for yourself, not for Allah. So it is a selfish desire, even if it is halal. And the moment it is selfish, that means for myself, now I have opened a door to Shaitaan. Because just as he was listening to Adam's heart and saying, what is it that Adam wants other than Allah? And he found immortality. He listens to our heart and says, what is it that you really want? Is it a career you want? Is it a place you want to go and live? What was it that misled, for example, Umar ibn Sa'd? He wanted the kingdom of Ray, isn't it? He wanted the governorship of Ray. So what is it you want? Do you want position? Do you want authority? Do you want wealth? Do you want a bigger car? Do you want a bigger home? Do you want children? What is it you want is what Shaitaan is asking. And once he knows what you want, then all he has to do is plant an idea that is wrong, but you believe it is yours. So that you will now forget the hereafter and momentarily focus on that. And his hope is that if he repeats this onslaught again and again and attacks repeatedly, then we will come to a point of iyas, a point of despair, where we will not want to repent, to turn back to Allah, and we will give up and forget Allah and forget the idea of shukr. So when we talk about how do we fortify ourselves from Iblis, the first and foremost method, which is difficult for most people, is that absolute surrender to Allah. We're told in the Quran that everyone will have fear on the Day of Judgment, because they won't know where they're going. Everyone. Except إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Except the one who comes to Allah with a heart that has surrendered completely. Now when you look at tafsir, what is qalbus salim? What does it mean that everyone will have fear on the Day of Judgment, except the one who comes with a qalbus salim? The tafsir of that is that except somebody who comes with nothing else in his heart except Allah. And of course, by extension then, we speak of the love of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, that is also wanting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they are his agents and his ambassadors. So unless somebody comes with this absolute purity, they will have some level of fear. That is difficult for us to attain right away. But we see this in, as we said, Shaitaan says, I will not be able to get to Ibad al-Mukhlaseen. We see, for example, in an ayah where Allah talks of Ibrahim and Yaqub and Ishaq, and He says, Inna akhlasnahum bikhalisatin dhikr ad-dar. This is in chapter 38, 46, verse 46. He says, Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub, I made them so mukhlis. Inna akhlasnahum bikhalisatin dhikr ad-dar. So that they were only thinking of the hereafter. Every decision they made in life, every desire they had, every step they took in life, it was focused on the hereafter, which is very difficult for many of us to do. The other way to do it is the dhikr of Allah, of course. That constant remembrance of Allah is a way to protect us from Shaitaan. And Allah says, وَمَنْ يَعْشُ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ نُقَيِّدْ لَهُ الشَّيْطَانِ فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. Whoever turns away from the remembrance of Allah, constant remembrance of Allah, We appoint for him a shaitan so that he becomes his neighbor, his partner. And that is why there is so much emphasis on the dhikr of Allah. And then the other point, which is what I wanted to mention for tonight and conclude, is shukr. Now, we have a hard time doing constant dhikr of Allah. We have a hard time being so sincere and mukhlis. We have a hard time surrendering to Allah and having this taslim. But this is something that inshallah we can try and take from the blessings of Imam al-Hussein in this majalis, something that we can take back with us today, first for myself and for all of us, is to develop this habit of doing shukr to Allah, which we have lost. We have seen this in our parents, in our grandparents in the past, but we don't do it anymore. We sit to eat, we never think of saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maybe if we have children, we tell them to read Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim because we're trying to teach them. But if they are not around, we don't do it ourselves. We finish eating, we don't say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Right? And Alhamdulillah itself appears small, but it's a big thing because it now is an acknowledgement that this is not something that is my right. This is something that's my Lord has given me, and I am acknowledging. And I'm doing so to again keep that connection with Him. So you constantly hear of people who fall sick, but we don't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the health we have. We constantly hear of people who have lost jobs or who are stressed about their livelihood. We have that sense of security, but we don't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We hear of people who have medical issues where they cannot even sleep at night. We go to sleep every night, but we don't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sleep is a ni'mah as well. Right? The air we breathe, the food, the children, the love, every moment of our life we need to have this attitude of shukr. And look at this thing that, Shaitaan, when he said, I will misguide all of them, what did he say? He said, وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. He said, my goal is you will find none of them to be doing shukr to you. None of them will be grateful to you. Allah combines His remembrance with shukr in Surah Al-Baqarah chapter 2 verse 152. He says, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرُكُمْ. Remember me, I will remember you. In other words, I am constantly thinking of you. The moment you think about me, you will find me present. That if you remember me, you will find me with you. وَاشْكُرُوا لِي وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. And be grateful to me and do not be ungrateful. He is giving us that rope. We are in the ocean sinking. He is throwing us that lifeline to say, be grateful to me constantly and do not be ungrateful. And this will be your lifeline from Shaitaan. And he asks in Surah An-Nisa verse 147, مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ. What will Allah get out of punishing you in this world or in the grave or in the hereafter? مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ. If you do shukr. وَآمَنْتُمْ. And you have faith. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ شَاكِرًا عَلِيمًا. And Allah Himself is grateful and all-knowing. That if you show gratitude to Him, He will reward you because He is grateful for your gratitude to Him. In other words, He is saying, if you have shukr and iman, then Allah has no reason to punish you. Because now you have found the means to secure yourself from the wheels of Shaitaan. And then he laments in chapter 34 verse 13, وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. But there are very few of my servants who do shukr to me. And that is why Iblis was right in his assumption at that point when he said to Allah that you will find most of them to be ungrateful. Now the fact that Allah has opened doors of thawab and maghfirah and so on and so forth is a different issue. But the issue we have is that shukr is very important. And that this is one of the first places we need to look at in our lives and say on a day-to-day basis, how much gratitude do I express to Allah? The first thing we do is complain. When I fall sick, I complain. But the first thing I should do is be grateful for all the time that I had health. When someone I love passes away, I am upset, I feel sad, I lament. But have I done shukr for all the time that I had with him or her in life? So everything is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We come to believe this is my child, this is my mother, this is my father, this is my home, and therefore when we lose it, we lament. But if we always see things as a blessing and a temporary custody we have over a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then when He gives us, we do shukr. When He takes it away, we do shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the adab, and this is the falsafa of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We see that they were constantly doing shukr at every stage in their lives, during days of happiness and during days of sadness. We are in these days of Aza, and you will recall that when we recite the Masa'ib of Sham Ghariba, we say that after all that Qiyamah that had happened, and I've come to the words of Masa'ib, but we are told that, all that calamity that befell on that day on the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, calamities that an ordinary human being could simply not have been able to bear. It was beyond the capacity of any ordinary person to bear that sort of physical, emotional, mental stress, because everything that could have gone wrong for any human being on that day was facing Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. If you look at Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura, you see physical fatigue, you see hunger, you see thirst, you see loss of loved ones, you see the emotional stress of leaving women and children in the desert, you see the jihad, you see the loss of his family members and his ashab and ansar and aqruba. You see all that anguish and stress. But Hamid ibn Muslim says that as Hussein alayhi salam continued on the day of Ashura, his face kept radiating with nur, because he is constantly aware of his connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are told that even when Hurmala shot an arrow on the neck of his baby, and Imam al-Hussein came back to the Khayyam, where did he find the strength? It is beyond any human being to see their 6-month-old slaughtered like this in their hands. But where does Hussein get strength from? He says, Hawwana alayya annahu bi'aynillah. Oh Allah, I am able to bear this because I am aware that you are watching. That any masa'ib that is befalling me on this day is not happening in a vacuum. It is not that nobody is aware, that nobody is watching. The fact that I know you are watching is making it bearable for me. And then when that masa'ib comes to an end, and Imam al-Hussein is shaheed, and the next Imam takes over, and the women's rida has been looted, and the tents have been burnt to the ground, and they're now in a cold desert, waiting to be taken as prisoners the next day. What does Imam al-Sajjad do? He goes into sajda, and the entire night he is doing shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these are the words of al-Masa'ib as well in the Darbar of Kufa and Sham, that this is our honor, that Allah chose us over all of humanity for this kind of an imtihan. So this level of shukr you will not find from anywhere except Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And that is why when we claim to be his Shias, we must find the strength to have that level of shukr. But these are the days now, we are approaching the day of Arba'een and the days of Chahlum. And I want to recount some of the masa'ib that inshallah you will hear in the days to come, and particularly on the day of Arba'een. But we are told that after the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam had been taken as prisoners and been paraded in the streets of Kufa and through a very difficult journey to Sham, and they were taken to the court of Yazid, and Yazid placed them in a prison that we are told was a dungeon in the ground, where there was no roof over that dungeon. So in the daytime the heat of the sun would beat down on them, and in the night the cold night would overwhelm them, and the food would be so little that we are told on some accounts that Imam Zainul Abidin, on one account, he saw his aunt Zainab alayhi salam praying Salatul Layl while she was sitting, and he asked her that I have never seen you praying while you are sitting. And she confessed to her nephew and said, the food and water they bring is so little, we give it to the children, there is none left for us. And the weakness has overwhelmed me now, so that I cannot stand and pray. Ajrukum Allah. It is in this prison as well that Zainab lost the amanat of Hussein, that Hussein had said to her on the day of Ashura, that my sister Zainab, whatever happens, you must protect my Sakina. And when Mir Anis captured this in one couplet only, he says, Khaye tamache shimr ki jab tak ke kha saki, sin kamta dukh bahut na bardash kar saki. When Imam Zainul Abidin had buried his sister in that dungeon, And the days and nights passed, and Yazid realized that his kingdom was now in danger. And he now sought a way to find relief from it. Then he decided he would now free the prisoners and return them to Medina. But this was only to save himself. And we are told he called Imam as-Sajjad to the darbar once more, and he said to him, I have freed you now. And he asked for the chains to be removed. But now Zainab alayhi salam was going to show Yazid that who is it that won the battle of Karbala. Oh Yazid, I will show you now. When Imam Zainul Abidin came back to the prison of Sham and said to his aunt Zainab that we have got Riyahi and Yazid has freed us, we can go back to Medina. She said, I will not go back to Medina, I will first do Matam of Hussein in Sham. They did not let us cry for my brother Hussein, we will cry for him in Sham. The women of Sham came for the majlis of Hussein in Sham. Zainab recited the majlis and they sat and heard what happened in Karbala. Then there came the day when Imam Zainul Abidin said to the women folk, we must now return. Yazid appointed a man, Bashir bin Jadlam, to take them back. And Zainab alayhi salam again asked that all our mahmil should be put with black clothes because we are now in mourning. And all their demands were met. And when the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam was about to depart, we are told Yazid opened up all his treasures and said to them, take whatever of this treasure you want. To which Kulthum said to her, Ma aqalla haya'uki ya Yazid, how shameless you are, O Yazid. You have killed my brother Hussein and now you offer us wealth in return. We do not want your wealth. This qafilah began leaving from Sham. Zainab alayhi salam said, before I go back to Medina, I will go to Karbala first. As this qafilah began to leave Sham, Zainab alayhi salam again said to her nephew Imam as-Sajjad, oh Sajjad, I want to go to the Zindan one more time. She came to the Zindan of Sham, and in that dungeon she sat beside a grave in the darkness, and she began speaking to the child buried there and said, Sakina, you kept asking when will I go back to Medina. Rise my child, we are going back home now. It is time to go back to Medina, my child. I am going to Karbala. Your Baba will ask me, Zainab, where is my amanat? Ajrukum alallah. But this qafilah left Sham and began going towards Karbala. From Medina, the first Zair of Hussein, Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari, came to Karbala. He came with a servant of his called Atiyah. Atiyah is the Rawi now. Atiyah says that when I brought Jabir, he was almost blind. Jabir said, I will go to Furat first and do ghusl. He says, I took Jabir to Furat. Jabir did ghusl at the river of Furat. Then he put on fresh clothes. Then he removed his turban and he removed his sandals. Then with bare feet, he began walking. He said to Atiyah, hold my hand and take me to the qabr of Hussein. Atiyah says, I held the hand of Jabir. Jabir walked towards the grave of Hussein, doing takbir and tahleel and saying, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. He says, when we got to the qabr of Hussein, and I put the hand of Jabir on the qabr of Hussein, he says, Jabir fainted. I would ask him, oh Jabir, if you fainted when your hand was on the qabr of Hussein, what will Zainab do when she comes to Karbala? Ajrukum alallah. Atiyah says, I sprinkled water on the face of Jabir. When Jabir regained consciousness, he began doing tawaf of the qabr of Hussein and reading, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah wa alal arwah allati hallat bifina'ik wa anakhat birahlik. Then Jabir sat near the grave of Hussein and he began calling out, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. When there was no jawab from the qabr of Hussein, he began asking, Ya Hussein, Ahabibun la yujibu habibahu. Oh Hussein, does a friend not reply his beloved friend when he calls him? Then he said, but oh Hussein, how will you reply me when they have severed your head from your body? But Jabir was crying for his Imam. when suddenly he saw a cloud of dust in the horizon. Atiyah said, these might be the people of Ubaidullah, we must go and hide. Jabir said, no, go look closely, this might be my Imam as-Sajjad. Atiyah went. As that qafila came closer, he came running back and said, oh Jabir, you are right, they are covered in black, the mehmil is in black, this is the qafila of Zainab and Imam as-Sajjad. But Jabir stood up to welcome the qafila. When this qafila came close and Imam as-Sajjad saw Jabir, I do not know how Imam as-Sajjad must have wept when he saw Jabir. Imam as-Sajjad had miraculously come to Karbala after he was in Kufa to bury his father. The Rawi, the Arbab of Azah say that when Imam as-Sajjad had come and he had shown the Banu Asad where to bury the Shuhada, the Banu Asad did not know whom to bury where because there were no heads on the body. When Imam Hussein was buried, Imam as-Sajjad was alone. He wrote with his finger on the qabr of his father, Hada qabrul Hussein, alladhi qataluhu atshana. This is the grave of my father Hussein, whom they slaughtered while he was thirsty. Then he went to the Furat bank and he sat on the qabr of Abbas, and there he cried with the same words that Hussein had cried for Ali al-Akbar. He cried for Abbas and said, Alad dunya ba'dakal afa ya qamar bani Hashim. But Imam as-Sajjad did not have anyone to lament to. But now when Imam as-Sajjad came, there was Jabir. Imam as-Sajjad hugged Jabir. He wept at Jabir. And then he said to Jabir, oh Jabir, come, let me show you the Qayamat we experienced in this land. He took Jabir to one place. He said, Ya Jabir, Wallah, ha huna qutila rijaluna. Oh Jabir, this is where they slaughtered our men. This is where they killed our men. Then he took him to another place. He said, Ya Jabir, ha huna dubihat adfaluna. Oh Jabir, this is where they slaughtered our infants and our children. Then he took him to another place. He said, Ya Jabir, ha huna uhriqat khiyamuna. Oh Jabir, this is where they burnt our tents. Then he took him to another place and said, Ya Jabir, ha huna subiyat nisauna. Oh Jabir, this is where they tied Zainab and Kulthum in ropes. While Imam al-Hussein took Jabir aside, he began reciting the Masaib of Karbala to him. The women dismounted from the camels and came to the qabr of all their beloved ones. Zainab threw herself on the qabr of Hussein. Akha Hussein, I have come back saving Islam from Kufa and Sham. My brother Hussein, do not ask me about your amanat. I have left Sakina in the zindan of Sham. Perhaps Zainab would have said to her brother Hussein, oh Hussein, this much I promise you, I will return to Sham and be beside your daughter Sakina. Zainab went to the qabr of Abbas near Furat. She cried to her brother Abbas, Abbas, you are with us in Kufa and Sham. Did you see how they paraded your sisters in the bazaars of Kufa? Oh Abbas, Abul Fadl, did you see us in the majlis of Yazid? When they had cried for 3 days, Imam as-Sajjad remembered the wasiyah of his Baba Hussein. He said to the women, we must now return to Medina. Some of the Mu'arrikheen say that Imam Hussein's wife Rabab refused to go back to Medina. One of the accounts says that Rabab stayed in Karbala for 1 year and then returned to Medina where she passed away. Another account says that Rabab, who had lost all her children and had lost her husband Hussein, she had refused to go, but Imam as-Sajjad convinced her. When Rabab went back to Medina, she took an oath she would never stay under a shade or any roof. She said, how can I be covered under a shade when I have seen my Aqa and Mawla under the hot sands of Karbala? She sat in the courtyard for days and weeks and months until she passed away. Ajrukum alallah. When this qafila came back to Medina, they could not see how they would go back into Medina. When they saw the walls of Medina, Kulthum began reciting Madinatu Jaddina, La Taqbalina, Kharajna minka bil ahlina jam'a, Raja'na la rijalan wala banina. Zainab threw herself on the qabr of Rasulullah. Ya Jadda, we have returned without Hussein. I have brought the shirt of Hussein and I have the marks of shimmer on my back. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا وبحق فاطمة وأنت فاطر السماوات والأرض وبحق الحسن وأنت المحسن وبحق الحسين وأنت قديم الإحسان وبحق 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسن والحسين. يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله. We ask you, Allah, to accept our majlis and azah in this day. We ask you, Allah, bihaqqi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, for maghfirah of all of our sins. Ilahi bihaqqi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, we ask you to give us the strength and the will to follow the path of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, and bless us with their ziyarah fi dunya and shafa'ah fil akhirah. Allah bihaqqi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, for our marhumeen and those who have passed away, we ask you for maghfirah. For those who are ill, we ask you for shifa. We ask you for ta'ajil in the dhuhur of our Imam, and to make us from his ashab and ansar. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. ماطم حسين.